Welcome to the Early Wedge presented by BetMGM. I am your host, EC, otherwise known as Eric Cohen. You know, this is a big week, it's third major of the year, and our guys on the show are stars all over the networks. If you watch cable, CBS Sports HQ, they are everywhere. Let's bring them on here. We have some spirited, I'm sure, discussion to get into. We have the host of the Early Edge. You can find him today at 10 a.m. Eastern. What time was that, Sia, that you guys were on CBS Sports Network? What time was that?
I was on with Patrick, McDonald, and others at 2 o'clock, from 2 to 3 o'clock
okay.
on the network.
Okay, I'm on the West Coast. I'm about to cross the Mississippi later this week, so I'll be on your Eastern. I know it's the first time I've actually been in Eastern time in a long time. Nonetheless, we have the star of CBS Sports HQ and CBS Sports Network, one Patrick McDonald, who is also an excellent golf writer who I always agree with his takes on CBSSports.com. Patrick, we're going to start with you here. John Rahm, who was the guy that Sia hated in his articles. I mean, it was like, I will not bet him under any circumstances. Well, that's genius right now. So Rahm pulls out of this week's U.S. Open. Are you surprised, number one?
Not after his press conference, right? Typically, guys like to hide stuff. I know that's a big bugaboo for DFS and betting guys when it comes to like availability and health status, but he was very forthright. He said he's not 100%. He's in a lot of pain. He wore a flip-flop. My Twitter feed was covered in his left foot, which thank God it's not going to be for the rest of the week. So not totally surprised that he withdrew, but it's definitely a bummer. Not the season that John Rahm has expected for himself, and he won't be getting it on the right ship here at the U.S. Open. And for these comments saying, did I just come from church or if I'm going to church, I have no idea what they're pertaining to. I thought it was a pretty slick sweater I'm wearing. I might have to take it off and just rock the blue polo for all I know.
I feel underdressed. I'll tell you that. Sia, we talk about DFS where it's so annoying where a guy will pull out like Hideki did the other week after it already started and then hoses everybody. So I got ready. I'm putting together my stuff for the show, and I had John Rahm as my fade in DFS this week. Well, we had to change that. Guess you have to change your article as well, because he was your massive fade this week.
Well, thanks for promoting my article. I actually, in that article, I did two things. I faded two guys. So I still have one that is on the fade list and the other one in that article, which you may or may not see later on. I actually have a different fade in DFS, but it was Patrick Cantlay. The reason he's not my DFS fade is because not a lot of people are fading him. I want to fade a more popular guy. But yeah, so in that article, which I think was put out very early Monday morning, I said no to John Rahm. I said no to Patrick Cantlay. And the rest of the show, you get to hear who I'm saying yes to.
I love the tease. And also check that out, sportsline.com. And if you need a promo code, just DM me and I will take care of you. DM me on Twitter and I will take care of you. So there you go. And you can find my my Twitter name right there next to my name here on the program. All right. Let's get right into it. How about that? I will be at Pinehurst this weekend. I'll be out there on Friday and Sunday. We'll see if I can actually hit an outright winner. Sia, you actually did last week. You did hit your outright with Colin Morikawa, so congratulations on that. Patrick still is one up with, just because he had Jake Knapp at 65-1 in the Mexico Open. But still nice of you to be on the board while I am still scrambling for something. We'll see if I can change that later in the show. Let's start with storylines. Sia, I'm actually going to start with you. And I think this is a really interesting one, kind of the mental aspect of Pinehurst.
So speaking of the Memorial, speaking of Colin finishing second and cashing that 10-1 ticket, I honestly thought Colin was going to win that tournament. For some reason, down the stretch with a few holes left, I thought, all right, Scotty is sputtering enough for Colin to take over. But the reason I bring up round 4 is because it was mayhem. It was absolute carnage. And there were only so many that were up to the task. You know, obviously Colin Morikawa was, Scotty Scheffler was, Hideki Matsuyama was. There was a handful of guys that were just really solid on Sunday in spite of the tough conditions. Well, for 4 rounds, I think we're going to see not identical conditions, but certainly tough conditions, certainly carnage, certainly things spinning out of control where you might triple bogey like last week's winner did in Scotty Scheffler and have to rebound and just have to steady the ship. And so strokes gain mental toughness. I think that's something that's important here. And to be honest with you, I'm so curious how this first round is going to play because I've been pretty hot with my matchups. Like the matchups on this show is my finishing positions for like 3 weeks in a row. I've been pretty hot, but mea culpa here. I've been pretty bad with my round matchups, but because there's going to be so much carnage here, I think this is a really interesting tournament to live bet and to actually invest a little bit more in round matchups once we get a little bit more information after round one. So that's just something I wanted to point out. But yeah, strokes gain mental toughness, that's going to play a center stage this week.
Okay, I like that. That is outstanding. We'll keep an eye on that. My storyline, I'll actually go second here. Will the absence of rough lead to lower scores at Pinehurst? Now, Patrick, you're the one with the 3 handicap, or maybe I'm shortchanging you there. Like, you're the best golfer here. So there's no rough on the course at Pinehurst. What does this mean with the native plants? Is that harder or easier?
So are you talking about the fairway in particular?
Yeah, if you miss the fairway.
It's a bit of a crapshoot. You could be fine or you could be completely boned. And honestly, the further offline you get, you're probably a little bit better. You get into the pine straw, you get away from those, I forget what, like the little bushes, whatever. But yeah, you bring up a very interesting point where guys might try to push the envelope. In fact, I know they're going to try to push the envelope and be okay missing in those native areas, knowing they might draw a good lie and have a wedge in hand, as opposed to laying back, hitting a 7 or 8 iron from the fairway into these greens.
Yeah, I don't know much about the plant area of Western North Carolina. I think that's where we are, Southern North Carolina. I guess I'll figure it out when I get there. But it just seems weird that there's no rough on the course. Now, your storyline.
Real quick, before we get to Patrick's storyline, this is part of the reason I'm talking about round matchups and live betting being kind of maybe a more important part, because there's 2 ways to attack this course. And I guess you could have said that last week too, but because we don't know what the danger is when you get off the fairway, we have an idea. It's going to be tougher, of course. You want to be on the fairway, but because we don't know what that danger is relative to being just out there longer and having shorter irons coming in, like I feel like part of me needs to see that. And part of me needs to see the frequency by which people are getting in trouble if they're just hammering it off the tee and going for distance. And so that's something that I think we really need to keep an eye on in round one.
Now, it's not a U.S. Open week if we don't see videos on social media about the greens and around the greens. Patrick, tell us more.
Yeah, I think the around the green game is probably the most interesting part of this championship. A lot of people remember in 2014, Martin Keimer kind of putting his way around Pinehurst number 2, and he kind of backed into that strategy. I think coming into the week, he was outside the top 170 in strokes gained around the green. His chipping and pitching was horrible. And then he opens with rounds of 65, 65, blows up that lead. And he had the luxury really to putt around bunkers, to putt to 20 and 30 feet, taking the double bogey out of play. And we've seen already this week, we have Tiger Woods really leaning into the 4-iron. We have Colin Morikawa leaning into the 5-wood. Xander Schauffele said he's going to putt a ton around these greens. Cam Smith is using his wedges and the putter as well. And so I think the around the green game is interesting this week because the up and down percentage was 50% in 2014. And while that's below the PGA Tour average, that's actually easier when it comes to U.S. Open, which is interesting. So kind of what strategy these guys use is something I'm looking at. And I think it's outside of the players, the biggest storyline when it comes to the course.
Hey, when it comes to around the green play, when I play, I putt out of the second cut. I mean, what
There you
the
go.
anything 30 yards and in and out of the second cut, I'm in. It's going to be fascinating, though. Just watching, I saw a video of Colin Morikawa trying to putt it up kind of a hill, and it didn't work twice in a row, came right back to his feet. That's going to be scary. And I think C is right. There are going to be a lot of big numbers in play, and that's why the in-round betting and in-progress betting for the tournament is going to be fascinating. Well, it is time for DFS picks, and I am sad to say as I look at this list that Patrick's favorites are not on this list. But see, we're going to start with you here, and you're fading a guy that has 5 straight top 10s in U.S. Opens. I'm surprised.
That's Rory McIlroy. I mean, here's the thing about Rory. I think he could have a fine tournament, but I don't think he's going to win. I mean, he hasn't won a major in quite some time, but that doesn't mean he's not going to win this one. But the problem with Rory, and the reason I'm fading him in DFS specifically, is because if I'm paying up top, it's going to be for Scotty or it's going to be for Xander. Unfortunately, Rory holds the bronze there, and there's just no way I'm getting to him. So that's why he's a fade. Really what I'm saying when I'm saying I'm fading Rory is that I'm not playing him, not because he's going to be bad, but because I think Xander and Scotty are going to be better. And even though Scotty has more ownership, Rory's ownership and Xander's ownership are going to be relatively high as well. So it's kind of, who do you want to ride with ultimately? Rory's not going to be the guy I'm going to ride with in DFS. The guys I'm taking, though, these are guys I don't normally play. I'll start with Tony Finau. I'm not a Tony Finau guy. I've probably said that once on this show before, and that was the other time I played Tony Finau in any capacity whatsoever. But I do like where the ball striking is, and I do think, even though the putter's been a problem, I do think maybe he's potentially trending in the right direction there. And I don't know that you can be team no putt here, but if the putter's halfway decent, I think Tony Finau is one of those guys that can get the ball out there, and to Patrick's point, have those short irons coming in. And I just think 8,100 is very, very low for him. And I'm sure he's going to pick up some ownership, but as I see it right now, it's not massive ownership. Hideki Matsuyama, I absolutely love in this tournament. You'll see why later, because I have him on other parts of my card. But talk about a guy who's good under like bad conditions. Like his round 4 was excellent at the Memorial. It seems like he's injury free right now. His short game is excellent. The putter has to come along for the ride, but the short game in terms of the around the green play and the ball striking has been solid. And Seabez, Christian Bezuidenhout, he comes up a lot with me. I bet on him a lot. You'll see him again later on in the show. 6,200 is an absolute steal. He'll be very popular in DFS. Just know that going in. So maybe you want to pivot off of him. But Seabez and like Strzok at 6,500, a couple popular plays. I love how Seabez finished out the Memorial. He's not great off the tee, but he does everything else pretty well. And he can get absolutely red hot with the putter. Love to see that at 6,200. Those are my 3.
You know, it's funny, when I put together my main DFS lineup this week, Sia, I have Hideki and Bezuidenhout as well. So funny that you and I synergy. Patrick, I expect Grayson Sigg to be on this list, especially with him being at a price below 6,000. Can you, at first, before you get into your picks, where's our buddy Grayson Sigg?
I'll be honest, I totally forgot he was in this field.
Yeah, well, he is. He was almost on my list.
Oh man, that is on me. I mean, it's like a free bingo square. I wanted to add a little more variety, so I went with Russell Henley, who I also liked last week as well, at 6,900. I think he has a real chance to sneak inside the top 20, top 10 this week. To tell you the truth, 2 top 15s in his last 3 U.S. Opens, contended throughout the one at Torrey Pines. Last year was a bit of a backdoor top 15, but accurate off the tee, fantastic long iron player, great around the greens, everything you really want from a U.S. Open player. And then Dean Burnmeister, 6,800, 7 straight top 20s, a win at a very difficult Trump National Doral, contended at the PGA Championship as well, finished T12 there. So I love the look of Mean Dean. Sia mentioned Sepp Straka, definitely going to be a bit popular down there at 6,500, but I mean, this guy is rolling back-to-back top 5s, including last week at the Memorial. Great iron player right now, accurate off the tee. Short game was good last week. Going to need to take a step, I think. And he's a guy who we've seen contend in major championships. I mean, he finished runner-up at the Open Championship. If he can get around the greens there at Liverpool, some creativity, I think he can get around the greens here at Pinehurst number 2. And then I am going to fade Bryson DeChambeau at 10-1. It pains me to say, but it's kind of the same logic that Sia just put out there. I'd rather play Xander and I'd rather play Scotty Scheffler. And Bryson kind of just falls short for me. I think the more I think about Bryson, the more I think he's going to be able to get around this place, even though Valhalla screamed Bryson DeChambeau. I mean, that was a Bryson DeChambeau golf course, and I wouldn't necessarily say Pinehurst number 2 is, but he's smart enough and he's good enough to get around. But I just like other players at the top much more.
Hey, Patrick, David brings up Robert Rock. Is that the dude who doesn't wear a hat? Like he's got like a nice, yeah. Is that one of your favorites?
Fantastic hair. Unfortunately, he's wearing a visor this week.
No.
But I wouldn't say he is one of my favorites all time, because he does have the best hair maybe ever in golf. Him and Victor Dubuisson, who had that floppy hair going with the out of the visor.
I was at that. I went to one day at that match play. It was in Tucson when Dubuisson and Jason Day had their rivalry. There. Oh, guys, gave good old Victor the head nod as he was walking by. Good. See, that's why we finished running.
Wow.
How about that? There you go.
Okay.
You've never heard of him before, and you've never heard from him since. All right, my DFS picks this week. I'm getting in some action here. Ludwig Oberg is playing really well. I'm taking a lot of guys this week that played well at Augusta. So you have Ludwig there. You have Colin Morikawa. I think these are prices. Anything under 10,000, I think is a bargain there. Harris English, I'll talk about later in the show, but he has 2 top 5s in the U.S. Open in the last 3 years. So at that price, I am in. Patrick Cantlay, kind of as Sia talked about, and in his article, how can you play Patrick Cantlay right now? He stinks. I'd rather play producer Jake and Patrick than Patrick Cantlay. I'm serious.
Yes.
And Grayson Sigg and Adam Scott and Steven Yeager.
Adam Scott, yeah. I told you he'd get.
I'm not playing Patrick. I tried last week. He is on the He's on the fade list for a reason after what he did at Riviera. But I tried last week with the no Scotty, and he embarrassed me. So we're going to pass on that. All right, on to FRLs. And speaking of embarrassing, I gave out some stat about Davis Riley last week, and he stunk. So I'm banning myself from this category for a while. Sia, on to you. You're going to start. I mean, this is what Patrick's going to get involved here, but this is your category. Let's hear what you got.
Yeah, not a ton of long names here because I do think whether it's the first round lead or the overall tournament, it's going to take a stud to win this tournament. Going right back to Colin Morikawa, the only reason I didn't play him in the first round leader market last week was because he had an afternoon tee time. And in spite of that, and by the way, the wind wasn't up, so it ended up not really mattering too much. But long story short, he was like -4 with 4 or 5 holes to play, and it looked like he was going to grab the first round lead. I think he even got it to -5, and then he regressed back to -4. I love him in first rounds. He's been very good this year in first rounds. He's obviously coming in with excellent form, so I like him at 30-1. Of course, he has a morning tee time, so do the rest of these 3 guys. Justin Thomas and Tony Finau, I'll group them together at 45 and 55-1 because these are guys I don't normally take. These are guys that have problems with the putter, but usually I'm willing to overlook putter issues, particularly in a first round. And I got to say, Justin Thomas has really been ball striking it. Like it's been phenomenal. And I would say the same about Tony Finau. So can they spike for a round and grab the first round lead? Absolutely. Like that. Sam Burns is more of a fear of missing out play because 2 weeks ago, we should have cashed him as a first round leader. And while I don't think a lot of people think he sets up well for this course, I kind of think he does. I think he's kind of sneaky, particularly for first round. And we know recently he's been good in a first round. Last week, his approach play actually was where he lost strokes, but he was good off the tee. He was good around the green, and he was good with the putter. And I expect him. We know Sam Burns can get hot with the approach play and with the putter. So at 60-1, I think he's sneaky. Of the 4, I'll say the Sam Burns one is the one I'm least confident about, which means I'll probably just put a buck or 2 on those and maybe a few more on the other 3, just FYI.
Fair enough. Now, Jeff says that he's played with a ton of pros and that Russell Henley hits his irons the best that he has ever seen. So Patrick read that and said, okay, I'm going to throw him in there for FR. Wait, that's not how it went. Nonetheless, Patrick, you like Russell plus 7,500. Tell us.
And he's the best putter many of my friends have ever seen as well. He's got some ties to the Charleston area, and all of them rave about him on the greens. And I was like, oh, really? But then you see the putter come back alive in 2024, kind of looking like that rookie Russell Henley who putted the lights out of the golf ball. And you see the putter that is going to carry him to the first round lead at 75-1. Great iron player, great putter, accurate off the tee, isn't going to make the big number. First round leader, stallion. So I'm going to give him the go on Thursday. And then everything that Sia said about Colin Morikawa at 30-1. I almost got there with JT as well, but paying up for Colin, I'm a little bit conservative. So only Henley and Morikawa.
Coming up next, there's a guy in one of your matchups, Patrick, that I don't think I've ever heard of before. You're going to tell us where you came up with him after we hear from one of our sponsors.
Well, you need your sports news anywhere?
We've got breaking news to bring you.
Then get your sports anytime you want them. Big trade news overnight to discuss.
Because we know you need sports all the time.
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
A legend adds to their legacy.
We're bringing you that breaking news right here on HQ.
CBS Sports HQ, anywhere, anytime, all the time.
I looked at, kind of looking ahead in the cheat sheet that we have here. I don't know who Tim Whiting is. You'll have to tell us who that is. Yeah, you'll have to explain that at some point. See, we're going to start with players that I actually have heard of. Well, you'll explain here. But see, let's start with players that I have heard of, and you have a few, including Billy Horschel. That's kind of an interesting one, going against a guy that I like in Harris English. Do tell.
Well, I'll start with Hideki Matsuyama over Patrick Cantlay. The only reason I'm starting there, EC, is because when that's at BetMGM. When I just looked at BetMGM like an hour ago, I didn't see it. So hopefully that's still up, or maybe they took it down and they'll put it back up. But I do like that one at -135. I don't need to talk too much about that. I've already sung the praises of Hideki, and we all kind of agree, like, Patrick Cantlay is not that dude. He was the fade for me last week in spite of his great form at the Memorial. I still wasn't buying into it because of his form in 2024, going right back to fading him. I mean, I'm going to probably find other matchups to fade him in as well. If you have any, put them in the chat and we'll green or red light them. Billy Horschel over Harris English. Like, here's the thing, EC. Like, Harris English is one of those guys, he gets talked about in a tone that I don't know that he deserves. And granted, a harder golf course, I can understand the pull for him. He's also a great putter, but newsflash to everybody out there, Billy Horschel's been putting it pretty great too. And everything else for Billy Horschel's looked really good since his win approximately a month ago. He has clearly found some sort of, I don't know, magic elixir. Like he is doing something different. I remember hearing Greg Ducharme, Patrick, on the first cut. I think it might've been on a show with you a couple of weeks ago, talking about how Billy Horschel did something with his iron, some sort of change, maybe a swing change or something to that effect. Well, it's really showing up in the strokes gain metrics. So I actually think Billy Horschel outclasses Harris English in a lot of metrics. Granted, I am going on more recent form than anything, but I usually overemphasize that anyway. So give me Billy Horschel at, I think, a pretty pleasant number, -110 over Harris English.
You know, if I didn't lose all this money to you over time, I would take you on in a showdown there. But I am kind of gun shy, not going to lie, after you having crushed me once again the other week, and you even forgot about the bet. You just assumed it would win. You forgot about it, and then the Venmo just shows up. Okay, now we move on, Patrick. I like your plays here. Well, not really. I kind of like Ludwig here, but who's Tim Whiting, and where'd you come up with this guy?
Tim Whiting. As for the irons of Billy Horschel, Sia, they were bent a couple degrees down, and he found out when he went into the bus that his irons were off the specs. Pretty much that was it. It was as easy as that. And once he figured that out, the approach play came back.
A full-blown Matt Fitzpatrick situation. Wow,
pretty much.
Happen? What are we doing here, guys?
It's crazy. It is absolutely crazy. But yes, I'm going Alex Noren, top Swede, +210 over Tim Whiting. It's a V, not a W, in Ludwig Oberg. Yeah, for top from Sweden. So Noren +210. I think that was a pretty good accent. Some of these accents can get me in trouble, but I'm pretty confident with that one. Don't make me do my Bobby Mack one. Noren, 9 top 25s in his last 10. I love him on a golf course where par is going to be a good score and gaining throughout the bag. Great with the short game, obviously great putter, just definition of a grinder. You think Hunter Renfroe, Julian Edelman, Alex Noren, right? Grinder, spark plug, energy like Energizer Bunny, all those, everything you use to describe a slot receiver, I use to describe Alex Noren. Whiting's honestly a great Korn Ferry Tour player. He's #tour bound. He's won twice. He's going to be on the PGA Tour next year, but he's not going to do well this week, unfortunately. And then Ludwig, U.S. Open debut. Some concerns about the short game. So I see this as more or less a 2-ball, which might be disrespectful to Tim Whiting, but you give me +210 on that, and I'm going to take it. And then Dean Burmeister. I almost forgot about this one. Sorry, I was talking about the top. Sweden. Dean Burmeister -111. This was at BetMGM over Dustin Johnson. From what I've heard, DJ's not playing a ton, not practicing a ton. The results back that up. Mean Dean, 7 straight top 20s, contention at PGA, like I said. So I love this play as well.
If you're DJ, do you really need to practice or play a lot? You got paid a bag of money. You're living a great life. You're going out and partying. What do you need? What do you need to play? You know,
exactly. And he can roll. The scary part is he can roll out of bed and shoot a couple 68s on Thursday and Friday, and no one would bat an eye.
Meanwhile, Mean Dean, he's not getting that bag of cash like DJ is. Probably not partying the same way with his lifestyle. So I like that play at -111. All right, I'm going with, how about Zal, our old friend who I haven't gone back to in a while, over Cameron Young. Cam Young's been horrible lately. And plus he has an awful U.S. Open history, 3 missed cuts and a T32. He's just been awful since the Masters. Meanwhile, Zal, listen, he has a solo second in 2022, cost me money, and a T6 in 2020 and 4 U.S. Open appearances. Did have Matt Fitzpatrick, but Zal would have won me more money. He went in the top 10 at the Masters. That's his only top 10 or top 20 since the Arnold Palmer Invitational. A little concerning, but he does have 4 top 10s in his last 6 majors, and at minus 115 over a struggling Cam Young, I am all in. And then Keegan Bradley over Wyndham Clark. I don't have any Wyndham intel for you this week. Yeah, sorry about that. But at minus 120, you have to fade Wyndham. This guy, he's missed a cut in 3 of his last 5, including both majors. He was T47 on defense at the Wells Fargo, not playing well at all. Meanwhile, Keegan, second here in 2014, albeit a long ways behind Martin Keimer. And he finished tied for second at the Charles Schwab and has top 25s in both majors. So it seems like pretty good value at minus 120. Both of these you can find on DraftKings. All right, let's move on to finishing positions. Sia, tell us what you have.
First of all, I'm really impressed with the chat just in general. Like Jeff Stenberg, like dropping some serious, is it Stenberg or Sternberg? I'm sorry, it's Sternberg. Oh no, it's Stenberg. He's dropping some serious knowledge in the chat. I wanted to say to Japan, congratulations, because he just had a baby boy. I think it was this morning, if not
that's
last
awesome.
night. And he also brought a fellow to the show, Tony. Welcome to the show, Tony. Taylor, love the questions and love the comments too there. And by the way, just real quick, somebody asked Patrick McDonald if at some point in the show, and maybe we won't keep doing this bit, I don't know, I think it's freaking hilarious, who's the boss theme song? Tony Danza. So maybe later you can break out your Who's the Boss theme song
Tony
lyrics.
Danza. Hold me closer, Tony Danza?
I don't know. Do I even know what that reference is?
Hold me closer, Tony Danza.
I knew where you were going with that.
Is really funny. Okay, wow.
Thank you.
By the way, you did reference that Russell Henley was good enough and smart enough, which for the record is an old school Saturday Night Live reference to Stuart Smalley. And when you said Sweden, it sounded like Sprockets and or Hans and Franz from old school Saturday Night Live back when it was really, really funny. So you are like, you don't even know it. You're hitting all the right notes. All right. I'm trying to hit all the right.
I'm an old soul.
You're an old soul. Clearly. You don't even know it. I've got 3 finishing position plays. I think with Hideki, I was going to say you could ladder this. You could play him top 10. You could play him outright, of course, which we might be playing him later on in the show. T20, maybe even T30. I will say this, the problem with this tournament in general, and I think it applies to Scotty Scheffler too, at least to a degree, like there are going to be some ejections here. Like this course is going to gobble up some people. Now it's obviously not very likely to gobble up the best in the world, but I do want to point that out. So as much as I want to like ladder Hideki in a top 10, top 20, top 30 situation, I do want to just put it out there that some of these guys just like are just going to have a bad day. And if you're having a bad day here, like it's going to be a problem. You're going to see that the winning score here is going to be -4, -5, -6. And the cut is going to be in the positives. Like this is going to be a very unique tournament. But anyway, Hideki T20 plus 160. I love the Alex Noren play, Patrick. Honestly, if I was thinking long shots, I have one long shot to give out. He was in the long shot conversation as an outright because I do think he does everything pretty well. I think he'll do a really good job saving par. Like him, T30 at plus 165. And then Seabass, we already talked about him at plus 170 in the T30 market. Between those two, I lean to Alex Noren, but I like them both quite a bit. I like all of these plays at the plus money that we're getting.
Hey, anytime that there is plus money, I'm all for it. I want to give a shout out, Japan. Congratulations on your new little one. And therefore, I'm going to play your Hideki Matsuyama over Max Homa -140 play. I like that. I think that's a very, very good play. All right. I love this category. Go ahead.
Sorry. Let us know what book you had that at because I didn't see that one. So it's a miss on me. Sorry. Go ahead, EC.
All right, 4 finishing positions here. Let's roll with them. Colin Morikawa been absolutely on fire. You're getting plus 140, including ties over at DK. 4 top 4s and an additional top 10 in 6 individual events from the Masters onward. Sign me up. Ball striking has been elite, and the around the green play has also been outstanding. And he has 2 top 5s in 5 U.S. Open appearances, so why not once again? I think he will contend once again this week, so the plus 140 for top 10 seems good to me. How about Tyrrell Hatton? This is a guy that I will never, ever, ever, ever bet to win anything. I don't care if he's on live. I don't care if he's playing against Patrick or Sia or me. Still not betting. He may finish second, but he's not winning anything. He top 20 at plus 180, also on DK, including ties. He has 9 top 20s in 12 tournaments this year and a T21. So he's been close. Only 1 top 20 in the U.S. Open. He was tied for 9th at the Masters, so I'm okay with that. Zal, we talked about. This guy has a great history, and at plus 240, including ties for a top 20. Great. And Harris English, top 20. Yes, CI. I had to include him. Plus 300 for a top 20. And this guy was T22 at Augusta and T18 at the PGA. So he plays well in these hard golf courses. and 3 top 10s in his last 4 U.S. Opens. I'm all for it. Let's hit this. Now, where can you bet these? Well, you can do it at BetMGM, where they also will pay out ties. You definitely do not want to get stuck playing finishing positions where they do not pay out ties. That is a nightmare. New BetMGM customers can sign up today and get up to $1,500 in bonus bets. Just place your first wager of at least $10 and you'll receive up to $1,500 instantly if your bet loses with bonus code EDGE. That's EDGE EDGE. Coming up next, is anybody going to hit the winner this week? I know I am. Let's hear from one of our sponsors.
It's a Sunday in Seattle with another round of the Cascadia rivalry on CBS and streaming live on Paramount Plus. Keep your eyes on me.
Before we give out outrights, I just want to say in the long shot section, I think I have the best bet that I have ever given out on this program. I'm going to tell you that. A plus 1,900
your tires,
is the best bet I have ever given out on this program. But all right, before we get into it, Jake, let's see the list that I put together that I wanted to not, Scotty's up to 5 now. So yeah, you can, I'm glad that's not good. Shane Lowry, the Zurich, Xander. Yeah, we remember what happened there. All right, Sia, anyone on this list to win outright outside of Scotty or Xander, who is the most likely to win outright?
Justin Thomas. Justin Thomas at 45-1. I think that one has legs. I might add him to my outright card when I publish the final portion of my SportsLine article, because it's, first of all, it's 45-1, so I don't have to put a lot on it to get a pretty big return. Justin Thomas, this feels like a tournament where the unexpected can happen, especially with a lot of ejections potentially at the top, just because of the nature of this course. So he's the first one that comes to mind. I mean, I know a lot of people in the chat brought up guys like Sahith Theegala. Tommy Fleetwood was just brought up, and the same person brought up Cam Smith. I think all 3 of those are fine plays. I'm not going to be on any of them. Fleetwood just doesn't give me any inkling that he could ever shoot well on a Sunday, or at least not shoot well enough. I mean, he's just can't get out of his own way from a mental standpoint. So Justin Thomas, I think, is live to win this tournament.
Yeah, and we don't have to worry about Tommy ever winning in America because he just simply doesn't do that. All right, Patrick, who's next on this list? Well, if somebody were to win this week, not named Scotty or Xander, and Shane, you can include him too. Who's going to win? Who's going to ruin this list even more?
I agree with Sia. It is Justin Thomas. I think he's very live to win this golf tournament.
Japan, I want to give you a lot of credit, but I'm not choosing Keith Mitchell. I don't even know if Keith Mitchell is playing this week. I don't know if he's not. Okay, well, we don't have to worry about that. Good. I don't have to bribe Sia and Patrick with another $50 bet. We'll talk about that, I'm sure, in the John Deere and 3M Open and Rocket Mortgage. Maybe I'll give you some Keith Mitchell odds there. All right, let's get to it for outrights. Patrick, I'm actually going to start with you here. You're saying, you know what? Scotty who? I'm going to play my guys to win with Scotty, without Scotty, doesn't matter.
Yeah, Scotty who? I found this number hanging today. It's down to 16.5. You can find 16 at DraftKings, I believe. But once I saw it, I was I waited. I sat on my hands when it came to the top of the board, and I thought I'd go sprinkle some long shots, but I decided to go with Collin Morikawa, dive in. I think it's finally his time. The U.S. Open is tailor-made for Collin Morikawa. He is going to be a U.S. Open champion in his career. It's just a matter of when. And given his form, given this course fit, given the uptick in not only the iron play, which is returning to Collin Morikawa levels, but the uptick in the short game. I mean, it's been unbelievable from him. I think this finally could be the time that he wins the U.S. Open. That time could be Sunday for all we know. So I bought in on that. Hideki Matsuyama was the first bet I made at 50-1. I love what this guy can do. Over the last 12 months, there are 2 men in this field who rank inside the top 10 in terms of strokes gained approach and strokes gained around the green. 1, Scotty Scheffler. 2, Hideki Matsuyama. I love him on firm and fast conditions, really hard greens to hit in regulation. Those are golf courses where he thrives. 1 at Augusta National in very firm and fast conditions. Let's not talk about that rain delay. Whatever. 50-1, Hideki. Justin Thomas, 50-1 as well. Iron play is fantastic. Short game, fantastic. Right behind Hideki in terms of strokes gained around the green. Putting, not great. But, everyone has their flaws at 50-1, and he's a major champion. He's playing great golf. No, he can get it done. The putting is concerning, but he's someone I believe can play himself into this tournament come the weekend. And at that point, anything can happen.
One of my favorite lines I've heard on the show, everyone has their flaws at 50 to 1. Yeah, I'm good with that. I like that. I fully approve of that line. Sia, you fully approve of Patrick's picks here.
I really do. We're definitely in sync here. I'll say about Hideki and Colin. Those are my two picks that you have to picture. Listen, I guess Scotty could eject, but let's assume Scotty does the Scotty stuff and he's there on Sunday. I think you got to picture like which one of these people that are in this tournament can stare down Scotty on the final stretch of holes, somewhere on the back nine. And I do think Colin Morikawa showed that he could. I mean, he was very close. Scotty had to miss a 5-foot putt, and then Colin would have had he wouldn't have had the outright win. He would have had a playoff and potentially won. So, I mean, I think he served himself well in terms of sticking with Scotty. I think Hideki Matsuyama, again, another major winner, is one of those guys too. I think there's a lot of guys. I think Xander's one of those guys. I think Rory, I think Brooks, potentially Bryson, but there's only so many that can close on a Sunday. And I think the two guys I picked, Colin Morikawa at plus 2,000. By the way, some of these numbers are gone. This in my SportsLine article, which was published Monday morning, that Colin number was still there. I mean, I put it in Sunday night, but Colin at plus 2,000 is now Colin at plus 1,600. Hideki at plus 5,000 is somewhere between 51 and 35 to 1, depending on where you're looking. And by the way, I got to take exception to JPAR 1320. Says a lot of making up to do after last week, boys. Oof. Okay, well, I hit 2 out of 3 finishing positions, all at plus. I hit 1 out of 2 matchups, and I hit the outright winner at 10 to 1 with the without Scotty Scheffler market. So I'm not exact. Listen, my round matchups, JPAR, if you're following those, you had a losing week because I missed on those. But yeah, I thought we actually handled ourselves pretty well last week. Just saying.
Not good enough, Sia. Not good enough.
Well, no, my picks aren't good
2 for 2
enough.
and 3 balls. Not good enough.
My picks aren't good enough. You just listen. JPAR is just thinking about my Davis Riley tip that I gave out last week, which did not age well. Listen, I'm just trying to get on the board here. Scotty or no Scotty, I don't care. Give me Colin. We've talked about him ad nauseum. Bryson DeChambeau, we've talked about him as well. Patrick, it's a little concerning when you say you don't think the course is set up for Bryson to win, but I love the way his game is right now, even though he wasn't great in Houston last week. How about Brooks Koepka, though? We really haven't talked about him. 18 to 1 without Scotty. I have him played with Scotty included there, and I think I got him at even a shorter number. He was T4 here in 2014 when he was still a nobody. He gained 4 or more strokes in ball striking in his last 4 tournaments. And he's won 2 of these, so he knows how to excel in tough scoring conditions. So I'm going to roll with Brooks there. I do like Ludwig Åberg. He's just a guy that right now drives the ball. Normally he drives the ball straight, and you have to worry about his around the green game and putting. And so what did he do at the Memorial when he T5'd? He had great around the green game and putting, and he didn't hit the ball straight off the tee. Never know how it's going to go. If he puts it all together, he can win. If I were to add a 5th member to this list, and I swear I've already bet this guy, Hideki Matsuyama. Just want to say that. So we're all in agreement there. I'm feeling pretty good here. But now, Joe, come on. I got a parlay for you. This is gonna blow your mind here. This is a winning parlay. All right, I'm going to start in the long shot section. I'm going to go first here, and then I'll get back to my other ones. So Scotty Scheffler, you want to play him to win the U.S. Open? That's fine. Patrick, who's the best women's golfer who won 5 in a row earlier this year?
Nelly Korda.
So if you put those two together to win this week, plus 1,900. For me, that's a half unit right there. You know what? I'm throwing my half unit there, and we're going to I'm going to hit it all. I'm going to hit the without Scotty market, and then I'm going to hit this. That's how I feel about that. All right, Sia, what do you got with Billy at 150? Wow, that's a big number.
Yeah, I mean, listen, this is one of those where, like I said earlier, I think this tournament's likely won by, a top 10 golfer in the world, maybe a top 20. But with that said, I do think there's some guys down the board. If this tournament plays a certain way, and again, we're not 100% sure whether it's going to be the bomb and gouge or whether it's going to be the accuracy contest and coming in with the long irons. I mean, it does make sense that the bomb and gouge will have the lead there. But then again, we don't know what trouble lurks necessarily. I mean, we can see it. We can see the Google images, but we don't exactly know how that's going to look in terms of, pitching out of the sand or the wire bushes or anything like that. So I do think there's guys like Billy Horschel, like Christian Bezuidenhout, like Alex Norn, that if they just do everything well enough, if they just do everything at like 75%, which Billy Horschel has really handled himself in that fashion over the last few weeks, I think they could potentially be there on Sunday. And again, if Billy Horschel is there on Sunday, which of course is a gigantic long shot, and I'd say the same about Seabez and maybe about Alex Norn as well, these are guys, Billy in particular, that I don't think is going to be afraid of the moment. And I do think that's a little bit of narrative shopping, but I do think that actually matters at this particular tournament against this particular behemoth in Scottie Scheffler. So Billy at 150 to 1, and you sprinkle $2 to $3 on it. I think it's worth it.
Hey, Sites 501, I'm disappointed in you. You said Decky and Morikawa are straight up missing the cut this week. The group think is all over. I mean, come on, that hurts. Come on now. I mean, if you want to pick my other players to miss the cut, fine. But come on. All right, top 10 parlay for me. I gotta love this one. I found this one at DK, or I think this one's a FanDuel one under tourney specials. Rory, Xander, and Colin Morikawa, and that includes ties. Plus 950. That's pretty juicy right there. How about this top 20? You can find at DK, Scotty, Justin Thomas, who you guys like, and Tommy Fleetwood, who's never going to win, like Tyrrell Hatton, never going to win probably on American soil, but he does know how to finish in the top 20 and does play well in the U.S. Open. And then we're going to throw a little bomb out here. This top finish parlay, Xander top 5, Bryson top 10, Tommy top 20 at plus 2,500. That's a half my usual bet size, but I'm going to take a shot at that one. I feel pretty good about that one. Another way to get some of these bets in is to do my parlay strategy. And if you had listened to Sia's pick, now I don't want to jinx it because we're, not through 5 innings yet, but watch the early edge tomorrow, see who the guys and gals take on, their picks. You put it with a Scottie Scheffler. You put 2 of those picks with a Scottie Scheffler. You can make some money there. Just want to throw that out there. All right, let me go over a few golfers that we really haven't talked about. Patrick, we really haven't mentioned Xander. This is a guy who generally plays really well in U.S. Opens, and he won the most recent major, and none of us have really talked about.
Yeah, I think he's super live to win. He has played 7 U.S. Opens. He has finished inside the top 15 in all 7. Only 2 other men can say they have done that. Bobby Jones and Walter Hagen. So that's pretty good company. He's got the longest streak in terms of top 15 since Jack Nicklaus, who did it with 12 in a row at one time. And he's got the entire game working with, right? I mean, he's confident as ever. He was horrible from tee to green at Jack's place. What did he do? Still finished top 10. And so you would think he's certainly going to be a factor going into the weekend.
All right. Sia, let me ask you about a guy that we haven't discussed at all, who really I was feeling great about my without Scotty bet last week. And then on the weekend, he imploded kind of like what I do in the middle of my rounds when Victor Hovland.
Yeah, I'm probably out on Victor Hovland. I think the creativity required, and I know that's a word somebody in the chat used, required around the green. I'm not saying he's going to be bad at that, but I don't really see that being like a wheelhouse thing for Victor Hovland. So I think Victor Hovland can have a couple of great rounds. I don't see him winning this tournament. I do want to point out a couple of other things. Moshi says DK on DK Horschel's number is the same with and without Scheffler. It's not actually. It's as far as I'm looking, it's 150 to 1 with Scottie Scheffler. It's 130 to 1 without Scottie Scheffler. But it reminded me of something because you just brought up Xander Schauffele. This is something I think is really interesting because I think you can do this both ways. I think you can bet Hideki Matsuyama, for example, at 50 to 1, and then bet him without Scottie Scheffler at 35 or 40 to 1. I think you could maybe pepper in some cash with both. But one thing I noticed about Xander, and I happen to be looking at DK, Xander's 10 to 1 to win the tournament, and he's 9 to 1 without Scottie Scheffler. Now, granted, when you're that short, losing a full point is something, but I would be leaning into that Xander at 9 to 1 without Scottie Scheffler versus taking the 10 to 1 with him. So these are things you can kind of look and see what you're comfortable with and without Scottie Scheffler and make your decisions from there.
All right, Patrick, in lieu of you singing the Who's the Boss theme song, do you want to sing the winning score this weekend at Pinehurst? Will it be under par? And if so, how much?
So only 4 men in 3 prior U.S. Opens have finished under par at Pinehurst number 2. Payne Stewart, 99, 1 under. Eric Compton, Ricky Fowler, 2014, 1 under. And the outlier, of course, Martin Keimer, 9 under. The winning score this week, drum roll please, Jake. 2 under par.
Sia, what about you?
I guess I'm a little bit more optimistic, but it's a guess and it's marginal. I'm going to go with 5 under ends up being the winning score. But, now that I think about it, the weekend, they're going to bake out this course. I mean, 2 under sounds more right. Okay, I'm settling on 4 under par.
I like it.
You know what? I like that. I like that as well. So yeah, I will be out there. I'm looking forward to it. I actually get to see what this East Coast time zone is all about. I will say this. I'm not really looking. I don't know how you guys do this because all the games start at like 8:30, 9 o'clock on the East Coast. Like for me, they start at like 5:30. This is great. The game ends. I have the rest of my night. Yeah.
You see, that's like right when you're getting off of work. It's not a normal transition. You got to like go home and like get pumped up for the games and stuff. Like, and also your football games start at like 10 in the morning. I don't know about that.
Oh, see, you get up early. The problem is in college, when I drive to my Arizona football games, those are at 8 at night. So that's 11 Eastern. We won't talk about that. Anyways, it's going to be a great time out there. A lot going on. Great job in the chat today. Thanks to producer Jake. Easy for me to say. Great job as always. Busy show. Thanks to one Patrick McDonald and Sia Nejad. Awesome job, guys. I'm Eric Cohen. As I always like to say, let's hit it big. Good luck.